Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mark Groves podcast. What does it mean to transform? What does it mean to change? What does it mean to emerge as something different? Because so often what happens is we get stuck in the transformation. We don't actually move completely through it. We don't let go of the old thing and become the new thing. I think the metaphor of the butterfly and the cocoon is obviously so powerful because the caterpillar is just chilling, making its way through the world, and all of a sudden it's like, I guess I should just stop here on this leaf, hey? I don't know why I need to, but I do need to. And then it starts to frickin' wrap up in a little thing and then melt away. Like its body starts to disintegrate into goo and then it takes a new form. And it feels like that is what transformation is like, right? Because there's literally a death of the old behaviors, the old way of being. And then there's the emergence, ideally, of the butterfly. And sometimes we leave the cocoon too soon. We only got one frickin' wing. Or sometimes we stay in it because we don't trust the new world. Now, I think of this process, right, and as Francis Weller would call it, or Jungian space of exploring psychology, that you're going through an initiation, that you're being initiated and invited by the world into who you actually are, into actually maturing into the adult version of you, of stepping into your power, your voice, your possibility. That life circumstances invite this from us. We don't always accept the invitation, or we accept it, but then we stay at the party too fucking long, right? We stay too long, and we know when we've done this. There's 3 signs that you're in an initiation. The first one is the world that you knew no longer makes sense, right? And think about that. When you wake up to something, you can't see the world the same anymore because you have new glasses on. You have a new lens that brings more clarity, and you might not like what the lens shows you. That keeps us stuck because we don't like it. But transformation, you're not meant to like the invitation. If anything, I'd say what feels like the most annoying thing you have to do, or the thing you're most afraid of, is usually the thing you have to do, because it requires you to become someone you've never been, because you only become that person by doing it. The first one, the world no longer makes sense. Second is who you are in the world no longer makes sense. So who you are and how you relate to the world, to your family, to your relationships, to culture, to everything, that's red-pilled, right? Like, to get red-pilled is to take the pill that says, I'm willing to see how the Matrix works. That movie is such a profound story because it's exactly what happens when you gain clarity about a pattern you're in, about maybe you're in a relationship that's toxic and you're starting to wake up to that. Maybe the choices you make, the habits, the rituals, right? And the last one is, you can't go back to the world you knew. You can't go back. You can try as fucking hard as you want. You can try, but you can't go back. And this is why we need, things that numb us, because we go back, but we're now aware of a new possibility, of a new world. And so we had some incredible guests in 2024 talk about transformation, talk about change. We're at the end of a year. And of course it is normal for us at the end of the year, because it's a delineated ending in a calendar, that we say, what we were most grateful for about 2024, and what are we grieving? What was the most challenging part? Those are all really important points of self-reflection. But yet it's a delineation of an ending and a beginning every day, every minute, every second. And so we get to decide, when does the transformation of the old, because we get stuck at the wound, right? We can get stuck in the cavern of the wound, because maybe we get power from that wound. Maybe it justifies our stuckness when we talk about the traumas we've had, when we say, look at all these things that have happened to me. Because we're afraid of becoming all of ourselves, because we got hurt when we were ourselves. But are we going to let that wound hold us back for the rest of our lives? The answer could be yes, but I'm proposing no. Because no soul wants to get stuck in that, but the stuckness is the perfect amount of time to release oneself. So in this episode, we've got some real game changers. We've got some amazing highlights that I know you're going to find value in, that will allow you to usher the ending of 2024 and step into 2025, and that you're not playing catch up. You're already arriving there ready, and that you're really embracing the invitations that you've had in life to change, and actually saying, you know what? I'm going to stop pretending I'm not being invited. I'm going to stop pretending I don't know. What knowledge are you sitting on that you're not living? That's what you got to move towards. So before we dive into the episode, as you're watching this video, please hit the like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit the notification button so that you don't miss any. And here is the best of transformation from 2024.
I had the same questions other people do. Is it just that I haven't met the right person yet?
Right.
Is it, is someone going to come along and make me feel the way that I'm supposed to feel? Is it me? Am I broken? Am I someone who, I remember having the thought where I was like, am I just, am I just never satisfied? I ended up dedicating a chapter in the book, in the new book, to that very concept. I called it Never Satisfied. And there's a moment in the show Hamilton that like I pulled out for the book because it, there's a moment where I think it's Angelica meets Alexander and he says, "You're like me. I'm never satisfied." And it's like two people who struggle to find satisfaction finding each other, and how dangerous that is. I felt like that.
It is.
So that for me the embodiment was I would say there were two big things that I felt like I had to figure out. One was how to accept myself on a level that I never had before.
Yeah.
Because I think I carried around a lot of things deeper down that I thought made me unlovable or made me, just shame or regret or guilt and I don't think I ever trusted anyone to truly love that me. Mm-hmm. And the second thing was me learning how to start chasing, and I mean chasing in a positive sense, but how to start chasing a different kind of feeling than the one that I had been chasing so far. That there was this recognition that whatever I'm doing right now is jacking up my nervous system constantly in ways that are leaving me feeling, yes, I'm getting some highs, but I am like anxious and unhappy and this doesn't feel good. And I was like, there's some other thing that I have to orient myself towards, some other feeling, peace for one, or this isn't going to end well.
What was the turning point for that? Like, where was I'm done with this and I'm actually ready to finally turn towards this, deeper path? And, to me, it sounds like you've been writing this book for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe literally, but also.
Literally. Well, that's it. Even that, literally for 4 or 5 years of my life. But certainly long before that, in terms of what I was starting to edge towards, in terms of the turning point, my wife will tell you when she met me, she was like, the word she uses is searching. She was like, I could feel, my wife's like the most compassionate, empathetic person. She feels people, like she just gets people.
She like saw right in.
Yeah, pretty much, and she was like, you were not, when I met you, like I could feel you were like searching for something. You didn't know what it was, but like you were searching for something. And I think I'd been doing that for a couple of years because I'd hit some pretty like, I'd had some rough times that people didn't know about. I'd been through a bad heartbreak. I had developed, years before that, one of the things that had plagued me for 7 years of my life, maybe 4 or 5 by that point, was chronic physical pain. And I never spoke about it because it put me on the edge. Like I really was not, I was functional in my life, but like a zombie is functional.
Wow.
I got tinnitus where my ears wouldn't stop ringing. And then on top of that, I had all sorts of physical pain in my ear and my head that just didn't go away. To the extent that I went to every kind of treatment, therapy, both physical, psychological. I mean, I did so much. I flew to different parts of the world to try and fix it. I listened to anyone on anything who could throw me a lifeline and try this, try that, and nothing worked. And it really put me in a dark place where I didn't know what. It was the darkest time in my life for sure, because I didn't know how to get out.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I can't fix this physical pain, I'm never going to be happy again. And I remember the reason I started therapy was because I was in such a dark place that I thought, I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. I need saving here. And I remember going to a therapist and saying to him, I have decided that I am just going to live for everyone else from now on.
Wow.
Like I love my family. I love the people that work with me in the company. I get to help people in life as a living. I'm just going to pour energy outward and try and live for other people, because my life is over. If I can't get rid of this pain, I'm never going to be happy, because it's all I think about. And I don't know how to get rid of this pain.
Yeah.
So where does that leave me?
Right.
And so those things were a huge catalyst for me, because my whole life had been very type A, very driven, knew how to like work my way out of a bad situation. And like for the first time in my life, there was a situation, I couldn't work my way out of it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't outsmart it. I couldn't run away from it. I couldn't do anything. I just had to figure out how to navigate my relationship with it. And that was the biggest learning. It was a very humbling thing, in some ways too humbling, because it fed into it started to affect the way I saw my value in the world. Like I remember thinking, I write about it in the book, like no one's ever going to be attracted to me again, because they don't, even if they think I'm attractive, when they get to know me, they're going to see how fragile I feel.
Yeah.
And this is like the opposite of the strong man who's able to, I feel like I'm going to fall apart in any moment because of how on the edge I am with this pain all the time. And it made me feel really weak. So I just in every way was in a dark place, and navigating my relationship with that became like a completely new path in my life that I never would have taken. I think I would have kept on some level
doing what you're doing,
just covering, whatever ways I wasn't accepting myself or whatever. I would have just kept covering over it with the next achievement and the next thing that I do and whatever. And this just forced me to figure out how to find some form of peace and happiness, even in a time when everything felt like it was going wrong. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a big shift for 20-somethings, is going from sort of what has happened to me, that my parents happened to me, or the pandemic happened to me, or whatever, to like, okay, well, what am I going to do about it? Because,
Right.
I can't necessarily change what happened to me. But, you're right on when you say, what was it? Turn your mess into your message, of that the way people find out what is right for them at work, what is right for them in a partner, what is their purpose, is they usually bump up against some things that aren't right, jobs and relationships that don't feel so great. So it's may feel like a painful and inefficient way to learn, but I can't really imagine how else you would go about doing that. And, that's part of the 20s too. Which is another thing that makes it hard, is the number one precursor to depression in young adults is a significant loss, usually of a relationship. So breakups often lead people to feel depressed, but really what we're looking at is loss and grieving. And that's actually healthy. That tells us like, oh, your attachment system is working. You had this thing and you thought it was going to be great and you love this person. They're gone now. You're feeling devastated. That's actually how your brain is supposed to respond. It doesn't mean you're going to feel this way forever.
What do you think about some of the ways that we respond
perceptionally to, grief of, let's say, the loss of a partnership, or the anxiety and depression that you're speaking to, that would be a natural response to not just uncertainty, but also being inundated with, I think, like, cultural things are also impacting that, like cancel culture and, the lack of ability to have diverse dialogue, feeling free to be self-expressed. Like, there's a lot riding on the self-expression of a 20-something, especially because I think in that decade, we really prioritize belonging over self-expression. Like, we're almost in some sort of battle, recognizing that if I keep selling myself out, compromising myself, all these types of things in order to maintain group membership, which I totally understand, we start to realize that, like, I think the inflammation that's created by that starts to catch up to us. Like, we start to actually experience physiological responses, which is anxiety and depression, I think, in a large part. Right. So how do you see medicine and doctors' offices and things like that responding? Because I love how you're saying, like, we're so quick to medicate as opposed to contextualize, which would then, because I really think it's through that suffering that, if we can be guided and loved in that process and validated, that we can actually transform. And I'd really love your message about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, we are quick to pathologize and medicate, and it's not just, so, what can be helpful is to instead normalize and educate and say, this is a normal response to a depression. This is a normal fear to worry about being left out from your peers. I mean, your brain wants to belong. It needs to belong. And so I think normalizing that, contextualizing that, and then also helping people figure out, okay, what are the skills that I'm lacking? So the book is a lot about sort of skills over pills. And I'm not saying, no medication ever, as much as, whether you're on medication or not, you also need skills. And everybody needs skills. And most young adults don't want to be on medication forever if they're even on it. So what's happening in this relationship where you're feeling, chronically stressed and anxious? What are the skills that you're lacking there in terms of communicating to someone what you need? So I have a client who's in a relationship, and of course there's the giant piece of uncertainty, is this person the one? And, I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that, he often feels sort of stressed and anxious when something happens between them that he doesn't like. And then he's going to be kind of stuck with that for the rest of his life. And I said, well, I don't really see why that would be, because you could talk to the person about it. And it's not like you're choosing to put up with this thing that you don't like forever or not. It's, can we work on the skills where you communicate with your partner, actually, I kind of need this, or I'm not sure that feels good to me. And that then you can feel less stressed and less anxious about what your partner's doing, because you realize this is kind of a two-way street here.
What do you think is revolutionary about the approach that you're taking to 20-something mental health?
Yeah, what's revolutionary about it is that it's precision, age-specific approach. So when I'm working with a 20-something, and the first thing I'm asking myself, well, I'm contextualizing it, is this what I would expect from a 20-something in their position? And what are sort of the normal developmental stressors? What are the skills that person needs? I mean, if I have a 20-something who's crying every day after work, that's very different than a 45-year-old who's crying every day after work. They're going to be for completely different reasons. Your 20-something who's crying every day after work is probably stressed and trying to figure out, how do I get my skills up? They're on a steep learning curve. That's very stressful. A 45-year-old who's crying every day after work is probably having a crisis of meaning, or some, really deeply unhealthy relationship with a boss or a coworker. So, and they have a lot sort of other things to work with. So, what's revolutionary about it is it's saying we need to put this in the context of 20-something development, so that we're not pathologizing what's going on, and not trivializing it.
What would be the top skills that we would need? Like, I love skills over pills. I'm like, that's freaking great. What is the prescription?
Good, yeah. What are the skills? So there's 12 chapters. They're literally how-tos. So I probably won't get all 12, but I'll throw out half a dozen that are in there. The first two are pretty key because they go with us in all contexts. So it's how to think and how to feel. And we can talk about these more if you like in a minute. I've got how to have sex, because I've got more than one client who's like, wow, I'm watching too much porn and not getting out there and having actual relationships with people. How to love is in there, which is really about how to love and get your heart broken, which we talked about earlier, that, it hurts, but that's actually the way it's supposed to happen. Believe it or not, how to cook is in there. I don't share recipes, but I do talk about the real benefits for young adults to learn how to cook, that it's, one opportunity in their day to have a recipe and instructions and to be able to do it and see the results of something, right at a time when they can't see the results of all their other hard work for many years. And then how to choose purpose, because like we talked about a minute ago, young adults want purpose. They can feel stressed that they don't have it. But I talk about how it tends to be one of the later skills to develop, but that's normal. And we talk some about, how to start choosing to have purpose in your life, no matter how you are.
Are you feeling stuck? Whether it's just trying to figure out who you are and what you actually want from life, or you're healing from a breakup, or maybe you're trying to find your person in the dating landscape, or you're trying to get clarity if your person is actually your person, the Create the Love community is for you. In the community, you'll find other people who are navigating similar experiences, who have high standards and are going to hold you accountable to these new high standards that you're creating. Plus, you get access to a ton of valuable material, like monthly content that's themed and you get to work on through calls with me and your community. You get fun monthly challenges that we do as a group to help us grow together. And you also get access to a library of my content that you can search by topic, as well as access to all my Create the Love courses, which are no longer available for sale outside of my community. So you get all of this in a beautifully packaged community experience that is easy to navigate. If this sounds like something you want to be part of, go to markgroves.com/community and join us. I can't wait to see you there.
I had an agent, my first agent, who used to say talent is bullshit, and he said that because he'd represented tons of writers, and he said that, what counts is somebody that'll stick to it and grind. Obviously you have to have some talent to do anything like that. You and I are not going to be Michael Jordan, because we just
I won't be dunking on shit.
We don't have that.
Sure, yeah.
But within reason, right? Whatever, it's the person that has the ability to stick to it, not for day one or year one, but on and on and keep, I always say that, like, today people say I'm a talent, but for 30 years they told me I was a bum. And I was a bum because I hadn't learned, but if you can keep grinding and keep believing in yourself and keep doing it, that's another, skill they don't teach you, that, you don't get a medal for that or anything. The ability to kind of keep going when you're not getting any satisfaction or any feedback. But if you can keep doing that, you will get better. You will, suddenly
the daily practice,
and it isn't even just skill. It's something more mystical where at some point, for 15 years you couldn't do it. And then Tuesday comes along and now you can do it. Whatever it might be. But it's true. That whole thing of like hitting a rock, you hit the rock 1,000 times and finally the 10,000th time the rock splits, so it's beyond just getting better incrementally. There's a kind of a mystical thing to it that if you just keep grinding at it long enough, a tumbler clicks over and all of a sudden the lock opens,
Yeah. I remember just someone made a comment on a social media post I did where they had said, Mark got lucky, essentially how I managed some level of success. And I was like, man, you fucking have no fucking clue. Like, you didn't see the daily grinding, the posts twice a day, writing every day, recording, like the published things that crash, the published things that get it was good because it was fuel for me in a way. Like, we see the finished product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But like, I think of your books that you write, they're written because you've been through these things. So you're able to alchemize this knowledge and put it on a piece of paper so that in hopes that I don't have to go through what you went through, that I get to find, let's call it a shortcut, because I'm taking long cuts. You know, like people who are losing to resistance can actually find a way to overcome resistance. And it's because you've done that you could tell people how to do that. If you hadn't, as you said, been a bum for a few years, you wouldn't know how to speak to that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that guy who said that you got lucky, that's his own resistance talking. He wishes he was you. He wishes he had done, for whatever his dream was.
Yeah.
And he hasn't. So he's envious of you. So he takes a pot shot at you, So that is another sort of factor of when you don't do it, you fall prey to these vices like envy and things like that.
Interesting.
I feel sorry for that guy. I hope he turns it around.
Yeah.
But that's what that is. That's his own resistance to, because he sees you doing it and it's a reproach to him. Like, well, if Mark can do it, why can't I do it?
Yeah. Why am I not?
Yeah. Well, why am I not doing it? Yeah.
But babies come into the world experiencing what we now know from the newest science, which is quantum mechanics and quantum field theory, is that we are all connecting. And it's not that connecting is something I can do. Connecting is something I am. It's like we're breathing and I'm breathing. It's not something that I can stop doing or start doing. It's even more fundamental than breathing. It is being. It is what is connecting. And when a baby, and this connecting is not just local, it's cosmic.
Yeah.
Because we're a part of the nature of nature. We're a piece of nature showing up in this particular form. And so we show up in this form. And when the baby is newly here, the baby is experiencing being, which is connecting. And the interaction with the caretaker in that video we showed is natural. And then the mother is asked to interrupt that resonance that they were doing. Look at that, look at that, look at that. They were paralleling each other, and the mother stops.
Yeah.
And
at the instruction of Harvard University, the doctor.
It's a research project.
Yeah.
So she is asked to create a still face. Now give no feedback.
Stop
to
responding.
The baby.
Yeah.
For the
So
audience,
the baby,
it used to be that people, scientists and psychologists said that the way a person is in their life is biologically determined.
Yeah.
And Ed Tronick said, nope, at Harvard they wanted to study that it's relationships that make people who they are. It's not just your molecular structure.
Yeah. And you're right. And in fact, your molecular structure is somehow created by the way you respond to the stresses of your relationship. We don't come with this keratological stuff.
Right.
That's a defensive structure that arises. So the mother goes in, does the still face. So now there's no input from the mother. And the baby is now experiences a rupture of that resonance of back and forth. And what happens for the baby, we tell this story in public, and what happens to the baby is something way more significant than even what the researcher thought. That was, for them, it was just a rupture of the attachment impulse.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's a rupture of the experience of belonging to the universe. So when you rupture the local, which is the relationship with the caretaker, you rupture your relation with the cosmos, because we are so interconnected that our access to the whole is through the local.
Yeah.
You can't just go to the whole. This is why some people try to meditate and connect with God. And I think you connect with God by loving your partner, and that it is in being with the other that you experience the whole. You can't just go there by yourself.
Like the magic of the cosmos is experienced through the magic of the experience of another, which is the experience of yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
Because you can't see the absolute splendid nature of someone like a child, but your partner.
Yeah.
Which are you saying that through that experience, you now are returning to the sense that was fractured early.
When you transcend that or heal that or whatever word you want to use, overcome that, the drive of life comes out of that rupture. Every human being, we take the position, every human being on the planet, but people say don't ever say ever. So we say most 99.009 people on the planet
I like that.
went through the rupture.
Yeah.
Within the first few days, weeks, or months. And the people who study this say at about 18 months, every child has lost the glow that with which they came into the world. Because their social environment, their caretakers, are not sustaining the connecting process. And it's not that they don't care. They don't know. They lost it too when they were little. And they don't even know that this baby is a replacement of what they experienced when they were little. But mommy has to go cook. Dad has to go to work. And thousands of years ago, you had to go out and chase an animal for dinner or go plant something. So it's not that the caretaker is deliberately not attentive to the maintenance of the rupture, but they don't know they need to be.
Yeah. Wow.
And so consequently, when they do the rupture, they do not know when the baby cries what to do. So they either ignore it because they have to work, or they wait until the baby stops crying, and then the silence, they go see what's wrong with the baby. And so, but the rupture has already occurred. So so we think that's the universal human experience, and that we lose the experience of the joyful being that we are, but we do not lose the desire to be that joy again. And so that becomes the journey of the unconscious mind to find a way through other relations, and it has to be relationally. I mean, people try it privately. They'll take drugs, they'll dance, they'll go on safaris, they'll join a religion, write music or play songs. Everything is an attempt to experience. And you know how many songs are about joy?
Right.
Or about lost joy or wanting that joy again, that same old feeling that happens in romantic love and so on. It's all about the same thing. The joy of being was lost. It is my essence. I am looking to have that back, but I don't know how to get it. So I'll do whatever I can think of to do. So anything that gives me that. So the thing to say to couples and parents, you do have to manage that, and we say that to you with your new baby.
Yeah.
But if when you leave the child, and the child whimpers, you return, and the child can whimper, and you'll return. The baby builds then in the mind the new feature that's just being talked about in brain neuroscience, predictability.
Yeah.
The baby says, well, if I have a hurt, I'll cry and the mommy will come, but I won't just cry to get mommy to come. Out of my anxiety, I'll cry because my tummy hurts and I need food, or I need a diaper changed, I'm uncomfortable. And the parents show up. So it's like the reliability then doesn't trigger and lose the joy. So the person who survives childhood was with a caretaker who went about things normally, but they developed a pattern of predictability for the baby. So the baby didn't move from joy to anxiety. The baby kept its joy, and when it had a discomfort, it sent a signal and always knew somebody would come. And if it didn't come immediately, they knew it would come soon. And so the baby then has this element of predictability. But if you predict that when you cry, nobody's coming, then you're going to cry harder. And if nobody comes, then you'll stop crying. Then if somebody comes, then you know you can't cry to get somebody to come. You have to be silent. You see how confusing then life becomes for the babies.
Training.
How do I get that face? How do I get that nipple? How do I get that
Right.
milk? And that we spend all of our lives trying to, all these elegant things we do to raise money, have
Right.
big cars and houses, and sensual satisfactions are in attempts to get something fundamental down. And it's interesting that the longest running study on relationships in history was done at Harvard, now over 70 years, that at the end of it all, as wealthy as I am, as famous as I am, all these people said, without exception, the thing that turned out to be of most joy to me was the quality of my relationships and with my partner. So they prove the essence of being is relational. And when that's ruptured, then you go into anxiety. And you've got to turn off that anxiety one way or the other. And that produces all the symptoms that people experience. I'll turn it off by becoming violent, by yelling, by withdrawing, by becoming depressed. Anxiety is intolerable, so I have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And anger and depression are the two major ways we get rid of the anxiety. Because if I'm angry, I feel like I can take charge. And if I don't feel like I can, I go to depression. I don't feel anxious. I just feel down.
It's like deeper.
But the anxiety is masked with anger and depression. And when the anxiety shows up and you can't regulate it, then you really go crazy. So really, truly mentally ill people can't regulate their anxiety. So the schizophrenic then resorts into becoming another person and having, imaginary companions. And whatever the brain has to do in order to not feel vulnerable to non-being.
Yeah.
It's that fundamental. But what is so simple is that when you can restore connection, all that stuff goes away.